We are seeing huge protests across the Western world. Thousands, sometimes hundreds of thousands of people organized with Palestinian flags, signs, and keffiyehs. If many of these demonstrations and happenings do not feel organic or authentic, it's because they're not. So let's have a look at some of the donors, funders, and NGOs that are behind some of these increasingly radical, aggressive, anti-Semitic, and anti-Western marches, parades, and even domestic terror attempts. Two of the groups that have set the tone are, one, Within Our Lifetime, an NGO led by Nardeen Kiswani, a Palestinian organizer from New York City who has taken the movement to increasingly radical positions, such as its two recent attempts to block the JFK airport in New York. The second one is Students for Justice in Palestine, which has 200 chapters at universities across the US and Canada. The organization recently made headlines after its Rutgers University chapter was suspended and then reinstated by the administration. Masked members of the group then released a video statement in which the students had assumed the likeness of terrorists rather than students. Only an AK-47 was missing. These two organizations are closely related and part of a larger network, ironically funded by a Jewish American businessman who turned into an anti-Israel radical whilst living in Israel. Howard Horowitz is the board chair of the Westchester People's Action Coalition Foundation, known as Westpac, which funds at least 15 groups related to the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. But it's unclear how many groups it sponsors in total. Founded in 1974, Westpac's guiding principle is, quote, nonviolent protests against injustice, discrimination, war, and the causes of climate change. The finances and internal operations of this nefarious anti-Israel network are hard to track. Why is that? That's because they route all of their donations through Howard Horowitz's Westpac, which serves as their fiscal sponsor, an arrangement in which a nonprofit collects donations on behalf of other groups that do not have nonprofit status themselves. Essentially, these pro-Palestinian groups receive tax-deductible donations and grants thanks to Westpac's fiscal sponsorship without having to file the tax documents expected and available from most nonprofits. Likewise, the arrangement doesn't require the fiscal sponsor to detail the organizations it collects funding for. Fiscal sponsorship leaves a lot of gray area legally. This means that there is no statutory way to track the money that ends up in those Palestinian groups' hands. The anti-Israel network is organizing increasingly aggressive street protests and blocking critical infrastructure, such as the country's largest airport. Some of these acts resemble domestic terrorism. Despite this, top Democrat politicians, such as Representative Jamal Bowman and Representative AOC, participate in events organized by these groups. What binds them together? Wokeism and its pervasive hatred for all that is good, beautiful, and true.